Hello, sweet parents. Welcome to the When Our Adult Children Walk Away podcast. My name is Dr. Janet Steinkamp, and during each episode of When Our Adult Children Walk Away, I will provide my professional and personal insights, information and opportunities for your self-reflection and growth, tips and tricks to make every day count, and encouragement to keep moving forward. I'm here to help you dig deep and get down to the root causes so that you can find your way out of the darkness to a positive and lasting relationship. Grab your notebook and a pen, settle into your favorite chair, and let's get to it. In this episode, we are talking about the 6 most common mistakes parents make in the face of estrangement. I see these mistakes most often in the early stages of grief, in the disbelief, anger, and despair stages. Number 1, the first mistake is to emphasize fairness. Right? And in those early days when we are still trying to reconcile the reality that our adult child is intentionally pulling away or has gone no contact with us, in those early days, we are in disbelief, right? We just keep making excuses. Well, there must be some other reason. It can't be because of this. They'll come to their senses. In that time, we start talking about fairness. Well, it isn't fair. They won't listen to me. I didn't mean to do that. It's still a fairness issue for us. It's not uncommon for me to hear parents thinking, talking, explaining in context of who did what and who was most to blame and who is responsible, and they're still trying to figure that out, bring fairness into the conversation. There is nothing about estrangement that feels fair. Nothing. It will never feel fair. It feels painful, isolating, heartbreaking. Name your emotion. Fairness is not one of them. After 11 years of trying to understand my own estrangement situation, I can now say it was necessary. I can say that I might not have come to the understandings that I have today had my daughter not pulled away. However, the word fairness does not come into the conversation. If you are someone who's holding on to the unfairness of it all, I don't deserve this. I've done everything for that kid. I can't believe they would do this to me. Don't they understand they owe me? If you're in that mindset, I'm going to encourage you to do some work. Go out to the grief series of episodes and listen to all 7 of them, and then go back and listen to stages 1, 2, and 3. Okay, the second most common mistake is the use of guilt as a motivator, as a way to re-engage a conversation with our adult child. Guilt, when we're raising our children, when we're bringing them up, when they're very young, guilt is an important, I would even argue necessary tool in raising children. Guilt is a normal, healthy, emotional reaction to a behavior. Guilt and shame are very different. Guilt is an emotion that helps us monitor our behavior, our choices. We feel guilty when we didn't respond with a please or thank you. We feel guilty when we took more than our share of a dish at dinner. We feel guilty when we don't wash our hands after using the restroom. Guilt, in my mind, is the bumper that we use when we go bowling with children, right? We put the bumpers in the bowling lane so they can stay in the middle of the lane. To me, that's guilt. Keeps us in the middle of the lane. That's different than shame. Shame is very different. Shame is something that is damaging, it's hurtful, it's unnecessary. Shame is something that breaks us down. Guilt holds us together. When we use guilt or attempt to use guilt with adult children, they will dismiss us. They will laugh at us. They will make fun of us. Guilt runs its course as our children grow into adulthood. The frontal lobe, where the conscience lives, our ability to make decisions based on right or wrong, to make educated decisions based on what's needed, necessary, in our best interest. That part of the brain doesn't really fully form and connect until we're about anywhere between 33, 36 years old. So once we're beyond that and we have that formed in ourselves, we don't need or want somebody else to put that guilt on us. So parents, if you are still trying to apply guilt, you will be stirring the pot. I suspect you will be fueling the flames, so to speak, of whatever's going on between you and your adult child. It does not land the way it does when we're children. So if you're still using guilt as a motivator, I strongly encourage you to continue your work to learn more about the role of guilt in your circumstances, in your behavior, how you communicate. There is a difference between saying, would you like to come over for dinner Sunday? We're having family dinner. We'd love to have you join us. And saying, well, you haven't been to family dinner in weeks. Why don't you come? Why aren't you with us? Surely there's nothing more important in your life. You always like to come to family dinner. Big difference. Okay, so number 3, returning fire for fire. My mom used to call it a tit for a tat. I still use that term fairly frequently. They sling something at us, we sling it back. We sling something at them, they sling it back. It goes back and forth and back and forth. Each one of those volleys back and forth cause damage. They cause pain. They inflict injury. They diminish trust and respect. Tit for tat will not be to your favor. Yes, we want to make sure that we are represented accurately. So if the sling at us is, you're always yelling at me, and we're not yellers, we don't yell. We want to say, well, we don't yell. Well, yes, you do. No, we don't. Yes, you do. No, I don't. Yes, you do. So that just perpetuates that fire. And really what they're saying when they sling something like, you're always yelling at me, is that they don't like how we're communicating. We're not communicating effectively. They're not hearing us. We are not communicating in a way that they can hear us, and on and on. So take the message from that, not the literal word yelling. Take the message from that and adjust, accommodate, change your tactic, change your communication tool. We want them to hear us. We need them to hear us. And more importantly, in those early stages especially, we need to hear them. We need to know what's going on so we can slow down the disconnect, so we can minimize the damage. So if there's tit for tat going on in your relationship, I strongly encourage you to slow it down. Take a pause when something is slung at you. Listen to the message, not necessarily just the words. Although words matter, listen beyond the words. What is the message behind the message? What is the emotion? Are they scared, sad, hurt, exhausted? What is the emotion or the physical status behind the message? Okay. The fourth is the amends letter. People, it gets us in trouble. If it's not the right time, if the message has any kind of justification, accusation, just like we were talking about, tit for tat, well, you did this, so I did this. If any of those messages are in that amends letter, it not only will fail, it will cause more damage. There's a lot of chatter out on the internet right now about the amends letter and that they don't work and what's the value and that's a myth. And I would challenge that in saying it's not the amends letter that is the problem. The amends letter, in my experience, is an amazingly powerful tool. It can be. It needs to be written carefully. We need to be at a place where we are emotionally ready, self-aware enough, ready to take accountability. All those things have to be in place before we can write an effective amends letter. That's different than an apology. Sometimes we just right away when our adult children break away from us, or we come to terms with the fact that this really is happening, we move through that disbelief stage, we have things to say. Well, my encouragement would be that you write it all down, write the letter, and then keep it. Do not send it. Do not send something until you know that your filters are in place, that you are aware enough of your communication that you understand how and where guilt lives in how you communicate with them, where accusation, judgment, expectation, where all of those things live in how you communicate. When you are aware of those things and then want to sit down and write an amends letter, you can write a really powerful letter. I generally say a really effective amends letter can take 3 to 6 months to write. I know that's staggering. I imagine there are a lot of you that have just shaken your head, rolled your eyes, or taken a deep breath. The reason we take our time to write amends letters is very well spelled out I think there are 2 episodes about amends. One is specifically about the amends letter, and then one is about the difference between an apology, amends, and accountability. I would encourage you to go listen to both of those episodes if you are considering writing an amends letter, or if you are in the middle of writing one. It's never too late it is once you put that stamp on and put it in the mail or hit the send key. You can adapt and change and rewrite and edit what you want to send. And that is a process. It is an iterative process. Next, we're talking about, good segue there, talking about reconciliation or reconnection being a sprint. And it is not. It is a marathon. In estrangement, we talk about 6-month to 1-year intervals. When a parent comes to me and I say, how long has it been since you've had direct contact with your estranged child, adult child? And they say, well, it's been 18 months. I haven't heard anything. I haven't sent anything, not a text, a letter, a message through a third party. We've had no contact, 18 months. Then I'm kind of excited about that because it's time to get some work done. We might be able to get some footage here. That silence is so positive. If they've said no contact, they mean no contact. If there are circumstances that warrant some sort of communication, and they do exist, then those need to be considered very carefully. And they are very few and far between. Reconciliation, the road to reconciliation or reconnection, is long, it's hard, it's grueling. If you have a relationship that is in the early stages of faltering, you know that your adult child is pulling away. They're not calling as often, they're not picking up the phone, they're not responding to texts. You see and hear from them rarely. Then the focus needs to be on slowing down that disconnect and bringing things to equilibrium so you can do damage repair. So we can start rebuilding trust, strengthening the connection that does exist, figuring out what the problems are, where things are not connecting, where they're misaligned, where there are disconnects, and start strengthening those before the estrangement goes to the full extent of the continuum and cuts contact. This is a marathon. The next sentence may be a little difficult to accept. The reason it's a marathon is because it's been a marathon. Most often, adult children tell us, it's taken a marathon to get here. For us, it might feel like a sudden circumstance, an event, a snap. I call those snap events where, everybody just kind of loses it for a second and boom, it's over. It's a 30-second to 2-minute interaction and the relationship's done. The adult child storms away, don't ever call me again. Though in those instances, the adult children tell us it took a marathon for them to get there, that's been building for a very long time. And very often when I work with parents and we start digging into the relationship and what's been going on and what the adult child is saying and what the messages have been, what the sling, the statements that they sling at us, what those things are, we start recognizing that it's been going on for a while. Things have been getting worse for a while. When my daughter finally issued a no contact, she was an adult woman with children. I believe she was, 24, 25, maybe 26. And when she and I were able to rebuild enough communication that we could start sorting through all this, and I could start hearing her, listening to learn, not to react, responding with mature, articulate, fair, reasonable questions to clarify, gather information that I needed to learn and grow. Then I learned that her feelings and movement toward disconnect had started maybe 7 years earlier, 10 years earlier, when she was in high school, maybe even middle school. But I didn't think that in the moment. When that snap event happened, I really thought that was maybe a 6 or 9 month buildup. I certainly didn't expect us to be talking about years. So remember, when I say estrangement is a marathon, that is because it takes a while to get there and it takes a while to get back. All right, last but not least, parents often misunderstand who the estrangement is about. That is a complex statement because it is in many ways about both of you, the adult child and the parent. It is. It's very complex and layered. The adult child will be, most often, pointing their finger at you. By the time they have started pulling away actively, disconnecting, cutting ties, or have cut off all contact, their fingers pointed directly at you. You may be saying, this had nothing to do with me. They lost their mind. They were influenced by a third party. There was some catastrophic event that pushed them away, pulled them away. So where in there do we start digging to unwind or unbraid the jello, right? We cannot assume it is about them or that it is about us. This is a complex situation. Communication is always complex. In estrangement, there are layers of misunderstandings, incomplete communication, communication that didn't land correctly, communication that landed differently than we intended or they intended, and we don't know it yet. There's a whole lot to unwind there. The room for misunderstanding around who the estrangement is about, a gross miscalculation. So be very cautious. If you are sitting, listening to this and saying, oh no, Janet, I know why this happened. I understand what happened, and it's not about me. Or on the converse, this was all my fault. I'm completely guilty. I don't know what to do about it because I really screwed up. Well, that may be true. However, again, it's complex. I do talk with parents where estrangement involves addiction or abuse. Those situations fall outside my statements about who it's about. Those situations can be different. When there is abuse or addiction involved in estrangement, that is a whole different can of worms. It's a whole different set of circumstances with a high degree of mental health involved and some potential for very serious damage to the other person. Remember that circumstances where there's abuse or addiction often require estrangement. They often require someone to step away for their own health and safety. I am not talking about those circumstances when I list these 6 mistakes. What I'm talking about in these 6 most common mistakes is the other 75% of estrangement where there was no literal physical injury, where addiction is not in the way of the relationship. It's not in the middle of what's going on between two people. Those situations need a different kind of help and consideration. In these 6 mistakes, in these circumstances, there is hope. There are things to be done. There are changes that can be made. And based on your stage of grief and your readiness to embrace those changes, again, I don't want to change who you are. What I'm talking about here is aligning your communication and your style of interpersonal behavior with your adult child's. So there's not that big mismatch. They can coincide, they can complement, and they can be safe, trust-based, boundary-based. I am so glad you joined us today to hear this episode. This is a great episode to start with if you're just getting started. It's a great reminder to parents who are in the process of discovering their communication style, how their behaviors and various interactions with their adult child contributed to the situation, and areas that they may be able to strengthen or learn more about or adapt in order to be ready to reestablish trust and some channel of communication. We talk in the When Our Adult Children Walk Away circles, we talk about leaving the light on. We always want to leave the light on. So our adult child knows how to get to us directly, and they can get to us with as few barriers as possible. And we want to be ready when they come knock at our door to be able to open the door and welcome them in and be in a position ourselves to be able to respond, to listen actively, listen to learn, be curious, embrace, let go of judgments, and really show up for our adult children. Please go over to the When Our Adult Children Walk Away website. Check it out. You can schedule an appointment with me. You can schedule a 15-minute complimentary conversation with me by phone. There are all kinds of resources on the website. Check out any potential classes that are being scheduled. This fall, I'm thinking about putting together some book clubs. I love book clubs. I'd be interested to know if you also want to consider a book club, what book you might be interested in. Remember that there are episodes to this podcast that are available only to subscribing members. If you subscribe, it's basically a cup of coffee or two, and there are more in-depth, more complex, more difficult topics available to you. You don't have to subscribe. You are welcome to subscribe. I look forward to having you at a future podcast. So until we talk again, be brave and know you are not alone.